"You're not my real family," she screamed, and every guest turned to stare. My granddaughter's voice cracked the air like a rifle shot, but it was the smirk on Jessica's face, my daughter-in-law, that gutted me. She wanted this moment, orchestrated it. And my son? He just stood there studying the damn floor like it held all the answers. Then Sarah dropped the gift box I gave her, like trash, a box that held the one thing they didn't know I still had. They tried to erase me with lies, but I kept every paper, every signature, and when she opens that box, the truth will bury them. My name is Henry Merritt, and I'm 75 years old. Most mornings find me on my front porch with black coffee, tending the roses I've grown since Vietnam. My granddaughter Sarah's laughter used to ring across these wooden boards, but lately my daughter-in-law Jessica's whispers with her family have replaced that sound. My son Tom barely meets my eyes anymore. The morning air still smells of coffee and damp soil, while my roses flare red against the white fence, steady as the military discipline I've never lost. My late wife Mary taught me to keep meticulous records of everything, a habit that served me well through the years. I still maintain those files in my study, along with decades of friendships that run deeper than blood. But let me start from the beginning. You know what's funny about betrayal? It always comes wrapped in the prettiest paper. That afternoon, my kitchen was filled with the sweet smell of frosting and birthday candles, 75 of them crowding my cake like tiny soldiers standing guard. The windows were open, letting in that late summer breeze that usually made everything feel just right. I'd spent the morning getting ready, making sure my house was perfect. Even pressed my best shirt, the light blue one Mary always said brought out my eyes. Remember thinking how she would have loved seeing everyone gathered around like this, the way she used to arrange these family get-togethers. The small gift box in my hands felt light as a feather, but my heart was heavy with hope. I'd picked out a delicate gold locket for Sarah, my granddaughter, the kind that holds family photos inside. Took me weeks to find, just the right one, something special for a 13-year-old who still lit up my world every time she visited. "Here you go, sweetheart," I said, holding out the wrapped box. The paper crinkled under her fingers like autumn leaves, but something was off. The moment she took it, I noticed her eyes, hard and strange, like she was looking through me instead of at me. Then it happened. "You're not my real family." The words exploded from her like shrapnel, and every smile in the room shattered. My neighbor Ed nearly dropped his coffee cup. His wife Barbara's hand flew to her mouth. Ever been gut-punched? This was worse. The air just disappeared from my lungs, and my chest hollowed out like someone had scooped everything important right out of me. I gripped the back of my chair to stay steady, my knuckles going white against the wood. Jessica, my daughter-in-law, stood there with this thin smirk playing at her lips like she'd just won some kind of twisted game I didn't know I was playing. And Tom, my own son, couldn't even look at me. He just studied those old floorboards like they held the secrets of the universe. The party crumbled faster than week-old cake. Chairs scraped back, plates clattered, and conversation fractured into whispers that felt like rose thorns against my skin. The cake knife lay abandoned, pointing at nothing, while 75 candles cooled in the thick air. I did what any good soldier would do, fell back on training, kept my voice steady, thanked everyone for coming, tried to salvage what dignity I could. But you can't bandage a wound like that with politeness. The gift box sat unopened on the table, mocking me with its cheerful wrapping. One by one they filed out. Each goodbye felt like a little funeral, with awkward pats on my shoulder and eyes that wouldn't quite meet mine. The afternoon light faded into evening, and I found myself alone on my front porch, listening to car doors closing and engines starting up. You ever notice how silence has different flavors? This one tasted bitter. I sat there in my good blue shirt, watching darkness creep across my rose garden, waiting for someone, anyone, to call me back inside, to say it was all a mistake, to explain. My phone buzzed once. Text from Tom, "Talk later." 2 words. That's all I got from my son after watching my world cave in. I clicked off the porch light and stood there in the dark, my mind spinning like a compass that's lost true north. The question that kept gnawing at me wasn't why Sarah had said those words. No, what I needed to know was who put them in her mouth. Because a 13-year-old girl doesn't just wake up one morning and decide to detonate a family bomb like that. Somebody had been whispering in her ear, planting seeds of doubt, waiting for them to bloom into something ugly. Next morning, hit me like a hangover, though I hadn't touched a drop. Funny how heartache can do that to you, leave you feeling wrung out without the courtesy of a good time first. I stood at my kitchen sink, staring at a pile of plates still smeared with yesterday's celebration. Half-eaten cake sat heavy on China Mary, had picked out decades ago, back when we thought family meant something solid. You know that thing your mind does after a shock, replaying every moment, trying to make sense of it? I kept seeing Jessica's face, that little smirk that disappeared faster than summer lightning. The way Tom wouldn't meet my eyes, and Sarah, God, Sarah's words kept echoing like shots in an empty hall. Around 9, I picked up the phone. Had to steady my hand first. Didn't want my voice giving away how deep this cut went. "Oh, Henry," Jessica's voice dripped concern like honey off a hot spoon. "I was just thinking about calling you. Yesterday was, well, you know how teenagers are. They say the strangest things sometimes. About that smirk I saw," I started. "Smirk? No, you must have misunderstood. I was just as shocked as you were." Her tone could have sweetened bitter coffee. "Maybe we're all just a little sensitive right now." Before I could press further, she had to go. Something about a charity meeting. Convenient timing, if you ask me. Tom wasn't any better when I tried him next. "Dad, let's not make this bigger than it needs to be," he said, sounding tired. "We should keep the peace, you know. Sarah's at a difficult age." "Son," she said I wasn't. "Don't overthink it, Dad. These things blow over." Blow over? Like a tornado blows over a barn, maybe. I sat there after hanging up, remembering how Tom used to run to me with every scraped knee and broken toy. Now he couldn't spare 5 honest minutes. Around 2, my phone buzzed. Sarah's text read, "I meant what I said. You're not my real family." The words sat there, cold and precise, too precise for a 13-year-old. Reminded me of something, but I couldn't place it. Then it hit me. I pulled up Jessica's social media feed. There it was. Posts from months back about her charity work. All this talk about chosen family and real connections. Same words, different wrapper. My stomach turned as I scrolled through more recent posts where distant relatives had been commenting about protecting children from outsiders. I made a few careful calls to old friends, testing the waters. The pauses told me everything, how rumors were already racing through our social circle like wildfire in dry grass. Barbara, my neighbor for 20 years, actually said, "Oh," and let it hang there like wet laundry. Enough. I pushed back from the phone and walked to my study. Mary's old desk stood there, solid as our marriage had been. She'd kept everything. Birth certificates, adoption papers, every card Sarah had ever drawn. My wife was an organizer, thank God. Said you never know when you'll need proof of who you are and what's yours. The familiar smell of old papers hit me as I opened the drawers. Funny how that scent steadied my hands, reminded me of mission briefings, of knowing exactly what needed doing. I started pulling files, laying them out like we used to map operations. This wasn't about begging for apologies anymore. This was about facts, dates, signatures, things that couldn't be twisted by smirks or sweet talk. My phone lit up again. Another social media alert. Jessica's sister sharing some post about guarding family legacy from those who don't belong. I caught my reflection in the dark screen. Grey hair, lines earned by years of providing for people who now wanted to erase me. But my jaw was set the same way it used to be before a mission, back when I wore younger man's boots. I picked up my phone one more time, dialing a number I hadn't used in years. Frank would remember. He always kept track of dates, remembered conversations others thought were forgotten. If anyone knew when the whispers started, it would be him. 2:30 found me idling near Sarah's school, watching kids pour through those double doors like confetti. I'd been picking her up on Tuesdays since she started kindergarten, one of those grandfather duties that had become as natural as breathing. The teachers knew my car, knew my wave. Mrs. Peterson even gave me her usual nod from the crosswalk. You know that feeling when something familiar suddenly feels like foreign territory? That's what hit me as I watched Sarah spot my car. Her steps slowed, shoulders tight like a soldier approaching no man's land. Behind her, Jessica's SUV lurked 3 cars back, right where I hadn't expected to see it. "Hey, sweetheart," I called softly through the passenger window. "Thought we might grab that ice cream you like. The one with, 'You're not my real family.'" The words came out wooden, rehearsed, but her eyes, they kept darting back to Jessica's car like a compass finding north. I'm not supposed to. Who told you that, Sarah? I kept my voice gentle, the way I used to when she'd wake from nightmares and crawl into my lap during sleepovers. Because you know I'm still the same grandpa who taught you how to plant roses last spring. Something flickered across her face, pain, maybe recognition. Her lips pressed together so tight they went white at the edges. Then, barely above a whisper, Mom said, she said to ask Uncle David. He knows the law. David, Jessica's brother, the hotshot attorney who'd been hovering around family gatherings like a vulture lately. My fingers tightened on the steering wheel just as two short horn taps cut through the afternoon air. Sarah! Honey! Jessica's voice, carried across the parking lot with that sugary brightness that sets my teeth on edge. Remember we discussed your Wednesday schedule? Mr. Merritt probably forgot. You know how it is at his age. Mr. Merritt. Not Henry. Not Dad. The way she said it made me sound like some confused old man who'd wandered onto school property. Sarah's backpack rustled as she stepped away from my car. I have to go, she mumbled, not meeting my eyes. I watched her climb into Jessica's SUV, that unopened birthday present, still sitting on my passenger seat. The ribbon had gotten crushed somehow, twisted up like the knot in my gut. My phone buzzed. Tom's message read, "Work is insane today. Rain check on lunch." The drive home felt longer than usual. Every stoplight gave me time to remember Sarah's face when she used to run to my car, backpack bouncing, full of stories about her day. Now all I had was that damn box-riding shotgun, reminder of how fast things can change. Dusk was creeping in early, one of those fall evenings that sneaks up on you. I didn't bother with the house lights, just went straight to my study and clicked on the desk lamp. Mary's filing cabinet stood in the corner, solid as her common sense had been. That first drawer slid open with a familiar sigh. She'd always kept it oiled, hated squeaky hinges. The folder was right where it should be, labeled in Mary's precise handwriting, Birth and Adoption. Felt heavier than I remembered. Or maybe that was just the weight of what it meant now. My thumb caught the edge of the flap just as the house settled around me. Old timber creaking like it was holding its breath. Pages peeked up at me in the lamplight, their edges yellow with time. 40 years of legal proof, waiting to tell their story. My hand didn't shake. Funny how steady you get when everything's on the line. I eased into Mary's old chair, the leather creaking like a faithful friend. Past midnight, the house gets so quiet you can hear paper whisper. One by one, I laid out the documents across the desk. Birth certificates, hospital records, Christmas cards that marked the years like faithful soldiers. You would have seen this coming, I murmured to Mary's picture on the desk. She'd kept every scrap of paper. That mattered, filed with the precision of a battlefield map. Letters from 73 caught my eye, the year we brought Tom home. Her handwriting flowed across pages, mentioning coffee dates with Helen Davidson and lunch with Frank Murphy. Both still kicking, thank God, and neither one ever learned to screen their calls. I reached for the phone, hesitating only a moment before dialing Helen's number. At our age, late calls mean either emergency or confusion. She answered on the second ring. "Henry, what's wrong?" "Nothing urgent, Helen. Just following some threads. Remember when we brought Tom home?" A pause, then, "Of course. Mary was over the moon. That Jessica's brother, what's his name? David? He was asking about that time period at the Weber's anniversary party last month. Odd questions about paperwork and such." My pen scratched against the notepad. "What kind of questions?" "Oh, about old Will's adoption records. Said something about cleaning up family lines for his practice. Gave me an uncomfortable feeling, if I'm honest. David, always David, circling like a shark, testing the water." I thanked Helen and dialed Frank next. Same story, different angle. David dropping casual questions about guardianship papers at church socials, mentioning his firm's expertise in probate clarity. The desk lamp cast yellow circles on Mary's careful filing system as I tracked dates and names. Tom's early years were documented like a captain's log, except for one gap. The guardianship folder felt wrong in my hands, too light. Where carbon copies should have nested together, a single sleeve gaped empty. My laptop hummed awake, screen too bright in the midnight quiet. David's law firm website popped up all sleek and modern, protecting family legacy, splashed across photos of handshakes and satisfied clients. Their probate services page might as well have been a battle plan, ensuring rightful inheritance and clarifying family boundaries in careful corporate speak. I started marking names. Judge Wilson still played golf at the country club, and his secretary Margaret had helped Mary organize church fundraisers. The county records office opened at 8. Martha Collins still worked the front desk, remembered every face from 30 years of service. A route formed on the notepad. Helen first, she kept photo albums like holy texts. Then Frank, who'd witnessed half the paperwork. The kitchen clock ticked past 2 a.m. My eyes burned, but I'd pulled longer watches in worse conditions. This wasn't just about papers anymore, it was about honor, about truth. They thought they could erase 40 years of fatherhood with missing files and whispered doubts. But a soldier knows. The best defense is built in the dark hours. That birthday present caught my eye, still sitting untouched where Sarah had left it. The ribbon had lost its shine under the desk lamp. I moved to slide it aside, make room for another file, and something shifted inside. Not the soft rustle of the hand-knit scarf I'd wrapped, but a sharp tap, like paper hitting cardboard. An envelope. One I hadn't put there. The sun was just starting to leak through the blinds, painting stripes across Mary's filing cabinet. My hand stopped halfway to the box. Something in my gut said that envelope would change everything. And after 40 years in this house, I'd learned to trust Mary's quiet ways of leaving answers where they'd be found. The morning sun hadn't yet burned off the dew when I pulled into Martin's driveway. His little bungalow looked exactly as it had for 30 years. Right, down to the crooked mailbox I'd helped straighten after every winter frost. "Henry," Martin waved from his front step, coffee mug already in hand. "Been wondering when you'd stop by. Come in, come in. You know how some places just feel right." Martin's house was like that. Worn leather chairs that remembered your shape, family photos marching down the hallway in wooden frames. The coffee steam curled up from a fresh pot, and for a moment I could almost pretend this was just another social call. "Sarah's birthday got me thinking," I said, settling into my usual spot at his kitchen table. "About when Tom was little." Martin's eyes sharpened. He'd been our go-to neighbor back then, ready with his station wagon whenever we needed a late-night hospital run for ear infections or fever spikes. Hard to forget those days. You were always there, steady as a rock. Mary'd be calling the doctor and you'd already have the car warmed up. Remember the paperwork, the courthouse visits? Clear as yesterday. He shuffled to a cabinet and pulled out a photo album. "Here, that's you at the clerk's office. Must have been 73? Judge Wilson's clerk, Margaret, took this one. Said she'd never seen a father so determined to get every T crossed. The photo showed a younger me, hair still dark, bent over forms with reading glasses, perched low. My heart squeezed. There was Mary beside me, her smile bright as sunshine. From Martin's, I drove straight to Evelyn's place. Her dining room table was already set with tea and those butter cookies she'd been baking since Carter was president. "Found something you might want," she said, disappearing into her study. She came back with a manila folder, handling it like a precious thing. "Mary asked me to keep a copy, just in case." For know how she was, always thinking ahead. Inside was a photocopy of Tom's pediatric intake form, yellowed but clear. Right there under father's name, Henry Merritt. My signature at the bottom, dated July 15th, 1973. Standing at my kitchen island later that afternoon, I organized everything into a fresh binder. Each photo, each form, each written memory went into plastic sleeves. I labeled it Foundations in Mary's old label maker. Seemed fitting somehow. Tried calling Jessica, Tom's wife, but got her voicemail. Her message was new. "Thanks to our wonderful community for protecting what's ours during this family time." The words sat in my gut like cold lead. Tom sent a text. "Super busy, but we'll touch base soon." Like we were scheduling an oil change, not dealing with family bonds. Evening found me at the computer, diving into David's, Jessica's brother's, online presence. Found him giving seminars at law conferences. Managing questionable kinship claims in estate planning. That's what he called it. Watching him talk about protecting family assets from peripheral claims made my dinner threaten to come back up. But you know what? Each document in that binder was another sandbag in the war. Each signature, each date, each witness statement, they all spoke louder than whispers. Facts don't bend like rumors do. I was just closing the binder, that satisfying soft thud of work well done, when I noticed headlights across the street. Not passing by, just sitting there, idle. In the streetlight's glow, I could make out a sedan, dark-colored. Someone raised something to their face. A camera, maybe a phone. Snap, snap, snap. The binder under my hand suddenly felt awful thin against whatever was coming next. Next morning, I hit the county records office right when they opened. You ever notice how government buildings always smell the same? Like old paper and floor polish trying to cover decades of coffee spills. The clerk, her nameplate said Dorothy, gave me that professional smile they practice in mirrors. How can I help you today? I slid my list of reference numbers across the counter. Need copies of some adoption and guardianship records from 1973. Should be under merit. Her fingers danced across the keyboard, the smile still fixed. Then it cracked. I'm sorry, sir, those files are currently unavailable for review. Unavailable? My voice stayed level, though my collar felt tight. I was just here last month checking property records. Same system. Yes, well, she clicked through a few more screens. It appears the files have been reclassified pending review. Reclassified by whom? She handed me a business card, cream-colored with gold lettering. You'll need to contact this office for any clarifications. My stomach dropped when I read it. David Morton, Family Law Associates, Jessica's brother's firm. Just like that, 30 years of history vanished behind a keyboard click. I drove straight to Evelyn's place, holding on to hope by my fingernails. But when she opened that manila envelope, the one she'd sealed herself with such care yesterday, her hands started shaking. Henry, I swear it was here. She dumped the envelope, but only blank paper fell out. I checked it myself before. Your security camera, I said. The one your son installed? We watched the grainy footage together. 2:47 a.m. A figure in dark clothes, face hidden under a baseball cap, rifling through her mailbox. Professional, quick. Gone in under a minute. My phone buzzed around 4. Text from Tom. Dad, please don't escalate things. Let's keep it simple. Simple. Like 30 years of bedtime stories and baseball games could just be erased. Like the man who taught him to drive, who helped him through college calculus, who walked him down the aisle. That man could just be marked unavailable for review. I was staring at my binder, now full of gaps where yesterday's proof had lived, when the email arrived. No sender name, just a string of numbers. The E. Subject line read, Blood Tells. The message was brief. You have no blood claim here. See attached. They'd linked some legal article about inheritance rights, twisting definitions like pretzels. Amateur intimidation, but effective. Like a snake in your garden. Doesn't matter if it's poisonous when you spot it near your tomatoes. Remember that old military training about breathing through stress? 7 counts in, hold for 4, 9 counts. Out. I did that sitting at Mary's desk where she'd kept our family's paperwork organized for decades. The gaps in my binder stared back, white as surrender flags. The phone rang once, cut off. Blocked number. Outside, shadows stretched across my rose beds like fingers. Even the garden felt wrong, too quiet like animals sensing a storm. My phone pinged again. Calendar reminder, will review. 30 days. Time wasn't just passing anymore. It was hunting. I closed my eyes, counted to 10 like Mary taught our son to do when his temper flared. When I opened them, something had shifted. Not hope. Something harder. They weren't just hiding evidence. They were actively erasing it. This wasn't subtle anymore. This was war. The doorbell rang twice, sharp and demanding. I stood, straightened my shirt. Funny how training kicks in, even decades later. Assess, plan, execute. They thought they were, dealing with some doddering old man they could bully into a corner. Time to show them how wrong they were. The courier didn't even look up, just thrust his electronic pad at me, waiting for my signature. I kept my hand steady, something I learned in the service. Never let them see the tremor, even when your scope's on target. Special delivery for Henry Merritt, he mumbled, already turning away as I scrawled my name. The envelope he left behind was heavy, official-looking, with that raised seal that always means trouble. Know that feeling when you're about to step on a mine? That's what opening a court notice feels like. The words "Notice of Intent to Contest" stared back at me in bold letters. Below that, "Uncertain lineage" jumped out like an accusation. 6 months. They were giving me 6 months before the probate hearing that could strip away everything I'd built. I spread my bank statements across Mary's old desk, running the numbers. Legal fees could drain my savings faster than a broken pipe. Those roses I'd tended for decades might have to survive on rainwater alone while I fed dollars to lawyers instead. "Tom," I said when my son picked up, "we need to talk about this court notice. Your mother would have wanted—" "Let the process work, Dad." His voice had that practiced calm people use with elderly relatives. "The court, we'll sort everything out." Sort everything out. Like I was a math problem that needed solving, not his father. Later that evening, Jessica, my daughter-in-law, posted another family photo online. Everyone smiling, my granddaughter front and center. The caption read, "Protecting our own hearts." 27 likes, 12 comments about family first and staying strong. Funny how people pick sides before they know there's a fight. You know what? Military planning taught me. Break down the impossible into pieces you can handle. So I rolled out butcher paper across the dining room table. Mary would have scolded me for not using a tablecloth, and started mapping it all out. Red arrows connected names. Martin, who remembered the hospital nights. Evelyn, who'd held that photocopy. The courthouse clerk who'd processed the original papers. The timeline stretched like a battle plan. 6 months suddenly looked awfully short when you marked out holidays, waiting periods and filing deadlines. I drafted a letter requesting supervised access to those reclassified records, making it formal enough that ignoring it would raise eyebrows. Night settled in, heavy as artillery fire. The house creaked. All these old places do, and for the first time since Mary passed, I felt every one of my 75 years. Maybe this was what getting old meant, watching younger folks rewrite your life while you sat in your garden, pretending not to notice. The desk lamp hummed that monotonous tone that makes everything feel like 3 in the morning, even at 8 p.m. I folded the timeline. Careful, like closing a map after realizing you've been reading it upside down. My hand reached for the phone, thumb hovering over tomorrow's appointments. One click, and I could cancel everything. Just let it go. Hell, maybe that's what they wanted. The old man finally accepting his place on the shelf. The roses would still bloom without my name on the deed. That's when my phone lit up. The name Frank flashed on the screen, and my hand froze mid-reach. Frank, my old squadmate. Hadn't heard from him in, 2 years? 3? But there was his name, bright as a flare in the dark. I stared at that phone screen, remembering something our sergeant used to say, "When you're surrounded, that's when you find out who your real brothers are." Frank's voice hit me like a bucket of cold water, that same drill sergeant steadiness that used to keep us moving through jungle nights. "Henry, been watching your daughter-in-law's social media. What's this about you not being family?" I sank into my chair, phone pressed to my ear. "It started at my birthday party, Frank. My own granddaughter." My voice caught. She looked me in the eye and said I wasn't real family, like someone had coached her. Jesus Christ. Frank let out a low whistle. That's not something a kid comes up with on her own. No, it's not. I rubbed my eyes, suddenly tired. Her uncle, Jessica's brother, he's been whispering about inheritance. Documents keep disappearing. Court dates are coming up and I'm running out of proof that I'm even— Stop right there. Frank's voice sharpened. Something Mary gave me. Christ, how could I forget? Years ago, must have been right after Tom finished college. She came to me with this box, said to keep it safe, only give it to you if the family ever turned stormy. My heart skipped. A box, sealed tight. Been in my safe ever since. Mary she had a way of seeing around corners, didn't she? I gripped the phone tighter. Frank, I need to say that box. Already putting on my coffee, get over here. 40 minutes later, I was sitting at Frank's kitchen table. Combat photos lined the walls. Younger versions of us in jungle greens, arms around each other's shoulders. Frank's limp was worse than I remembered as he made his way to a closet safe, tucked behind hanging uniforms. The tin box he set down wasn't much bigger than a shoebox, but seeing Mary's handwriting on the lid, her, neat precise letters spelling out a date and Tom's initials, nearly knocked the wind out of me. Rain tapped against the window, keeping time like a metronome. 6 months suddenly felt both endless and impossibly short. Frank poured 2 cups of coffee, black as tradition demanded, and set a small key beside my hand. He didn't say a word, didn't need to. My phone buzzed face down on the table. Probably another of Jessica's perfectly curated family posts. Let it buzz. I had something more real in front of me. The key felt heavy, like it was made of memory instead of metal. It slid into the lock with a smoothness that spoke of Mary's attention to detail. She'd oiled it before sealing the box away, knowing it might sit for years. You ever notice how time changes shape in moments like that? The rain slowed, the coffee steam froze mid-curl, and even my breathing seemed to pause as the lid shifted under my hands. The air got thick with possibility. Papers rustled inside. Mary's final message to me, waiting all these years. Frank caught my eye across the table and gave me a single, sharp nod, the kind we used to give before kicking down doors. I started to lift the lid. When I lifted the lid, that cedar smell hit me first. Mary's signature touch. She'd lined the tin with it, knowing how long these papers might need to wait. Frank leaned forward, coffee forgotten as I eased out the first document under his desk lamp. My hands weren't exactly steady, but 30 years of gardening had taught me patience. The paper was thick, official-grade stock, preserved crisp as the day it was filed. My breath caught as I read the heading, Certificate of Adoption. Well? Frank's voice had that tight edge I remembered from patrol. It's here, Frank. Everything's here. I smoothed the document flat, running my finger under the key lines. My signature looked younger, more confident. The judge's seal was still sharp in the corner, and the witnesses, I recognized both names. Good people, reliable. What exactly are we looking at, Henry? Legal adoption papers, full rights as father, blood be damned. My voice came out stronger than it had in weeks. Court certified, properly witnessed. Says right here, all rights, privileges and responsibilities of natural parenthood. Frank let out a low whistle. Mary knew what she was doing. She always did. I set the adoption certificate aside and pulled out the next sheet. Hospital discharge papers, dated 3 days after Tom was born. Under father there was my name clear as sunrise. The third document made my throat tight. Mary's handwriting as neat as ever on proper notary paper. My dearest Henry, if you're reading this, someone has questioned your place in our family. I knew this day might come. Tom was born to a scared young girl who couldn't keep him safe. When she asked us to take him, you never hesitated. You became his father that very hour, not by blood but by choice, which has always been the stronger bond. These papers prove what your heart has known for decades. You are Tom's father in every way that matters, legally and morally. I've had this certified and witnessed, so no one can ever take that from you. Thank you for being the man who steps up when others step back. All my love, Mary. Jesus, Frank muttered, running a hand over his face. She saw this coming. She saw everything coming. I carefully returned each document to the tin, already planning my next move. Need to get these certified and filed with the court first thing tomorrow. Multiple copies. My phone buzzed. A text from Tom. Can we talk? Something in my chest loosened a fraction. Maybe seeing his mother's handwriting would remind him who we really were. The drive home was quiet, except for my wipers marking time against the drizzle. 6 months suddenly felt more like a finish line than a deadline. I parked in the garage and went straight to my study, where the scanner hummed to life. One by one, I copied every document, watching the images appear on my screen. Each one felt like another sandbag against the flood Jessica and her brother were trying to unleash. The originals went into my fireproof safe, backup copies into a sealed envelope for my lawyer. My eyes drifted to that unopened birthday present still sitting in the corner of my desk, the one my granddaughter never took. Before I could let that sting sink in, my email pinged. From James Morrison, Esquire, subject, let's clarify. Your status, I set my jaw, remembering Mary's words. The man who steps up when others step back. Jessica's brother was about to learn what that really meant. The email from Jessica's brother sat in my inbox like a snake, coiled to strike. His request for a private meeting to discuss resolution options had all the warmth of a tax audit. I forwarded Mary's documents to my lawyer instead, copying the court clerk for good measure. Let them chew on that. Less than 20 minutes later, Jessica's message popped up. Henry, we should handle this quietly. for the family's sake. Funny how family only mattered now that their scheme was unraveling. The words left a taste in my mouth like spoiled coffee. I called Frank. After Vietnam, he'd gone into accounting and he had a mind like a steel trap for dates. "Frank, I need you to cross-reference something." "Shoot, Henry. Remember when Jessica started acting strange at family gatherings? Around last Christmas?" I heard papers shuffling. "Hold on. Yeah, I kept notes after Mary asked me to watch things. First red flag was December 12th. Jessica dodging questions about holiday plans. While Frank dug deeper, I searched my email archives. There it was, a thread Jessica had accidentally copied me on last October, talking to her brother about navigating around an old adoption. My screen blurred for a moment. They'd known. All this time they'd known about Tom's adoption and deliberately hidden it. You know that moment when puzzle pieces suddenly lock together? Every strained smile, every whispered conversation, every forgotten invitation. It wasn't confusion or misunderstanding. They'd orchestrated the whole thing, probably hoping I'd just fade away quietly when my granddaughter rejected me. The porch boards creaked around. Sunset. Tom stood there looking like he hadn't slept in days. His eyes were red-rimmed, hands jammed in his pockets like a guilty teenager. "Dad!" He swallowed hard. "Uncle James said the adoption papers were just informal agreements, that they wouldn't hold up. I held up my hand. "Stop right there. Come inside." The kitchen still smelled faintly of birthday cake. I pulled out a chair for him, remembering all the times he'd sat there doing homework while I made dinner. Without a word, I placed the certified copy of the adoption papers on the table between us. "Your mother knew this day might come," I said quietly. "That's why she made sure everything was legal and proper. The only informal thing here was your uncle's legal advice." Tom stared at the documents, at Mary's careful signature, at the official seals. His shoulders started shaking. "I was wrong," he whispered. "God, Dad, I was so wrong." I wanted to reach across and squeeze his shoulder like I used to, but some bridges need time to rebuild. "The hearing's in 3 weeks. You'll need to decide where you stand before then." While Tom read through the papers, my phone buzzed with a court calendar confirmation. 3 weeks. Somehow the clock seemed to move faster now, like a countdown had started. The night wind pushed against the windows, making the roses dance in the garden Mary had loved so much. I laid out my grey suit, the one I wore to important meetings, and stacked the witness list and documents on the chair by the door. Each paper felt heavier than it should, weighted with all the trust that had been broken. Mary's last lines from her letter kept beating in my head like an old marching cadence. "Thank you for being the man who steps up when others step back." My phone lit up again. This time it was a local reporter, seeking comment on allegations of probate fraud and family exclusion. The quiet life I'd wanted was gone. But Mary had known there might come a day when keeping the peace meant surrendering the truth. And that was something this old soldier would never do. Just then, another email notification popped up, and my jaw tightened. The media was circling, and this family dispute was about to become very public indeed. The courthouse always had this particular smell, like furniture polish mixed with ink and anxiety. I'd been here decades ago adopting Tom, and now here I sat, having to prove it all over again. Frank's steady presence in the first row behind me felt like having my old platoon at my back. My attorney, Sarah Chen, arranged our documents with the same precise movements I'd used maintaining my service weapon. You can tell a lot about a person by how they handle their tools. I liked her already. James, Jessica's brother, stood at the petitioner's table with the kind of confidence that comes from never having it tested. "Your Honor, we have serious concerns about the lineage claims in this case. You ever notice how some lawyers talk like they're gift-wrapping garbage?" James went on about family integrity and protecting inheritances, while carefully dancing around the fact he was trying to erase 40 years of fatherhood. Sarah didn't play those games. When her turn came, she simply started laying out documents like she was dealing cards. Exhibit A, certified adoption papers, dated March 15, 1983. Exhibit B, hospital discharge forms listing Mr. Merritt as father. Exhibit C, a notarized letter from Mary Merritt explaining the circumstances. The judge, a woman with steel-grey hair and reading glasses that magnified her scrutiny, examined each seal and signature. The room got so quiet you could hear the ancient heating system clicking in the walls. Then she looked up, and I swear the temperature dropped 10 degrees. "Counselor," she addressed James, "would you care to explain these emails discussing, and I quote, navigating around an old adoption?" Jessica suddenly found the wood grain of their table fascinating. Tom, my son, no matter what anyone said, gripped his chair so hard his knuckles went white. I wanted to tell him it would be okay, but we were well past that kind of simple comfort. James tried to recover. "Your Honor, those communications were taken out of context." "The context," the judge cut in, "appears to be attempting to circumvent a legal adoption for financial gain. Would you agree?" The gallery behind us stirred like leaves before a storm. You could feel the moment the legal ground crumbled under their feet. The judge's order came down like a hammer. "The adoption is valid and recognized. The will contest is dismissed. Estate control remains with Mr. Merritt." She peered over those reading glasses. "Does anyone wish to dispute the documented evidence?" James shot to his feet. "Your Honor, we request a brief recess to—" "Denied." The word had all the warmth of a January morning. This court's time has been wasted enough. The hallway after felt like leaving a battlefield. That strange quiet when you realize you're still standing. A blogger I recognized from the local news site was already typing on her phone. Her headline would read, "Veteran grandfather, nearly erased from family, court vindicates rights." James hustled past reporters, his polished shoes clicking against marble. Jessica tried to shield her face when cameras flashed, but you can't hide shame behind your hands. I remembered all those social media posts about protecting what's ours, and felt no satisfaction in their public stumble. Stepping into the sunlight, I felt that peculiar lightness that comes after surviving something that should have broken you. My phone buzzed, a notification from my bank about their retainer being depleted. Legal fees had drained their accounts dry, just as they'd hoped to do to me. Frank clapped my shoulder. "Well, that's done." Not quite. Back home, that birthday present still sat on my desk, unopened. Mary had taught me that sometimes the smallest things carry the biggest weight. Sarah gathered her briefcase. "Mr. Merritt, would you like me to file the court costs against—" Another message lit up my phone screen, and suddenly I remembered there was still more story to tell. A week after the courthouse, I was back in my garden when Tom's car pulled into the driveway. My hands knew what to do with the roses even while my mind wandered. 40 years of muscle memory doesn't just disappear. You ever notice how plants don't care about court orders or family drama? They just need steady care and honest work. The phone had been ringing steadily since the story broke. Martha from the VFW brought casseroles and righteous indignation. "Did you hear?" she'd say. "James can't even show his face at the country club anymore." I hadn't planned on their public fall, but karma has its own schedule. Speaking of James, his law firm was bleeding clients faster than a cut artery. Turned out people don't much trust an attorney who tries to erase a veteran's family rights. The Bar Association complaint was just icing on that particular cake. Last I heard, he was taking some time to reflect on his practice. Lawyers speak for watching your reputation circle the drain. Jessica's social media went quiet after the ruling. No more posts about protecting what's ours or chosen family. Funny how quick those friendship circles can turn into firing squads. Her charity board position? Resigned for personal reasons. The country club membership? Under review. Sometimes silence speaks louder than all those previous likes and shares. "Dad?" Tom stood at the garden gate, looking about 10 years younger than he had in court. Amazing what dropping a load of lies can do for your posture. "Need help with those roses?" I handed him the pruning shears. "Some conversations go better with busy hands." "Start with the dead wood," I said. "Work your way up from the bottom." We worked in silence for a while, the snip of shears keeping time like a metronome. Tom had helped me plant some of these bushes when he was knee-high to a grasshopper. Muscle memory works both ways, I suppose. "Jessica's moving back to her mother's for a while," he said finally. "The legal fees." He let the sentence die on the vine. I nodded. Funny how trying to steal someone's legacy can empty your own pockets. "Life gives us second chances," I said. "What matters is what we build with them." The crunch of gravel announced another car. This time it was my granddaughter holding that birthday box I'd given her months ago. The ribbon was a bit crushed now, but some things are worth the wait. She walked straight to me, eyes clear and direct. No more rehearsed lines or coached hesitation. "I'm sorry, Grandpa," she said, and the words came from her heart this time, not someone else's script. "Let's open it together," I suggested, and we sat on the garden bench where her grandmother used to read stories. The ribbon fell away, and she lifted out the silver trowel. Her fingers traced the engraving, her name, and below it, "Build roots, not walls." Her smile wobbled a bit at the edges. "I thought," I said, "we might plant something new today. Together." Tom brought over the rose bush I'd been saving. A peace variety, because sometimes the universe has a sense of humor. My granddaughter's hands were steady with the trowel as we dug the hole together. Deep enough for strong roots, I told her, just like my father told me. A rose is only as good as its foundation. The three of us worked together, tamping down soil and setting the support stake. By the time we finished, there was dirt on all our clothes and hope in the air. My granddaughter leaned against me, a real hug this time, not one of those polite ones that keeps distance between hearts. Looking at that new rose standing proud beside the old fence line, I thought about Mary, about time, about how family grows best in honest soil. "You know," I said, watching the wind ruffle the leaves, "blood fades. Loyalty lasts forever."